gonna throw this back there. Just pretend there's a Y at the end of it, because I said you should. Let's talk about the last book that I read and how I feel about it. Because much like the character in the book, I could not find a good answer to the question how I felt about it. This is the book. It's called The Stranger by Albert Camus. Let me go through the book in terms of what happens, and then I'll give you my synopsis or whatever. Okay, see that? This is what I'm on. The book begins with a guy named Merceau living in Algiers. That's a place somewhere, Northern Africa. His mom died. He put her in a home. He goes and sees his mom. You're getting all this through first-person limited perspectives. I'm not gonna pretend like any of this story that I'm relaying to you is interesting, because it really is not. Very little interesting happening in the book. It is not an entertaining story. Ugh, sorry to jump to the end, but seriously, when it was done, I was like, what the hell was this? 1.5 stars, screw this book. Mom dies, and he goes to see her, and then he sees everyone that's in the home, and they're all asking him questions and stuff, and he's just answering questions like a human does. He's meeting all the people that knew his mom at the home. She had like a little boyfriend at the home, so he's like, okay, that was mom's boyfriend, whatever. He's chatting with the super, so to speak, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, just shooting it, doing an all-night vigil, which I guess is a Catholic thing or whatever. Then the next day he's home and he meets some chick that he used to know, and he hits off with this chick named Marie? Something like that, Marie, Sophie. They're doing their thing, they see a movie, and okay, let's just skip through this damn story. There's an old man with a mangy dog. His boss is kind of like a, nameless boss. There's a pimp type character named Raymond. Raymond wants to get revenge on one of his girls because she was like cheating on other men. He essentially like sets up so that he can like beat the crap out of this chick. And Merceau, our character, is just like, okay, I'll draft it up for you. I'll draft up the letter and try to trap this chick. It seems to make him happy. I don't see why I shouldn't do it. So he just does it. So it goes down, and everyone outside's hearing Raymond beat the crap out of this chick. And he's like, should you go in there and help him or stop him? And he's like, nah. The cops come up and take homeboy away, but then Merceau goes and testifies on his behalf. They go to see Raymond's friend at the beach. Gosh, what a lame story. Anyway, it doesn't get good until a while in. Raymond's girl's brother wants a little bit of the old even Stevens with our boy Raymond. So as they're going out on their beach day, they're like low-key checking for these other cats. These like Arab cats are like giving them the third degree from across the street. Then while they're out there, they get into a fight too. One of the Arab cats takes a knife at Raymond, cuts him open, yada yada, blah blah. Before all that happens, so that Raymond doesn't shoot somebody, Merceau was like, hey man, give me your revolver, so I'm saying in case anything happens, I can take care of that, woo, and he takes the revolver and it's all good. But then later it's him alone, he's walking, and there's another Arab cat, was with the Arabs, and he was with Raymond, so they kind of like meet each other midway through, and he shoots him. How do I describe it? It was hot, and he wasn't really thinking very clearly. He just kind of just did what he felt like doing, so he could have stepped backwards and avoided the confrontation that was going to definitely happen. But instead he was moving forward. The guy saw him, and he was like, okay, well if the guy pulls out his knife, then I'm gonna shoot him. But then he walks forward again, and the guy pulls out a knife. So he plugs him once, and then he falls down. And then he just plugs him 4 more times. And then the cops come, they round him up, yada yada. And the rest of the story is like kind of his life in jail and like what the process of the justice system is like for him. Talks to the judge a lot, the magistrate, talks to his lawyer, and they're all trying to get a read on him, because Merceau doesn't really care about anything. He doesn't really have a reason. They're trying to decipher what's going on in this guy's head, and he really doesn't have a good answer for anything. And whenever people pressure him into giving an answer, he just kind of just says what they want to hear. While the court's things are starting, all the people that he knew from the first part of the book are coming up on the stand trying to testify on his behalf, and then inadvertently each one of them one by one is just kind of saying these things that are just damaging his case. After his mother died, he went to see a comedy film. He's well known to be a friend of a pimp in the neighborhood. He did not very much love his mother. He sent her away. He killed a man and for no reason shot him 4 more times. So clearly this man is a detriment to the human race, and the world would arguably be a better place without him. He didn't say anything on his behalf, even though he wanted to, although he did say that even if I did have something, what did he say? Let me pull that up. It was quite an effort at times for me to refrain from cutting them all short and saying, "But damn it all, who's on trial in this court? I'd like to know. It's a serious matter for a man being accused of murder, and I have something really important to tell you." However, on second thoughts, I found I had nothing to say. In any case, I must admit that hearing oneself talked about loses its interest very soon. And then when he actually did have the chance to speak, he low-key blew it. Whoa, scene change. Yup, it's nighttime now. He has really no defense for why he shot the guy. He can't think of a reason. He actually tries to explain whatever you can call it. I'm gonna call it a thought process, but it's not really a thought process. His defense was essentially, it was hot out, so he couldn't really concentrate. Much like his entire demeanor in the courtroom, he can't concentrate then either. So when he tries to make a defense, it all just kind of falls out real awkward, and no one's really listening to him. No one wants him to live. He ends up getting sentenced to death. Then he has to wrestle with that for a brief moment, like, oh, I'm gonna die. But he hasn't really cared about anything up to this point. He doesn't really have a defense for life itself, so it's not that hard for him to get over with it. And then he's ducking the priest who tries to come up and see him, and the priest is like, don't you want to get right with God, yada yada yada. And again, kind of backing him into a corner, trying to force some kind of religious conversion onto him. And of course, our guy doesn't take that very well, so he kind of flips on dude. But I am more alive than you, yada yada yada. That makes him feel better. And then he's like, yeah, I get to die. The end. That's the story. Was not happy about that. It was super boring. Essentially because the entire story reads like some guy just telling you about his day. He's like, oh, my mom died, and then I saw these people, and this is where I was when I was with these people, and they were looking at me, and they looked like this, and then I went home. And these are how the people are where I'm at. This is what my people do every day. This is what my neighborhood looks like. The whole thing is just like a shopping list. Is what it reads like. And then I met a guy. No one likes this guy, but I don't have a reason not to like this guy. And he's like, hey, let's beat up my girlfriend. And I'm like, okay, I can help you with that. And then I went to the beach with my girlfriend. For a minute, I thought about marrying her. Then I found that guy we were fighting with before, and I stepped towards him, and it was hot, so I shot him. And then I shot him 4 more times. It was just boring to read. Not until the trial was it exciting, because I was really frightened. It just bothered me that they were trying the man and not trying the crime, you know what I mean? They're essentially doing all these questions and inquiries into this guy's mind to see whether or not he's fit for human life or fit to be a part of their community. And if he doesn't fit, they're going to kill him, because they can, and maybe they think that they should. That bothers me a whole heck of a lot. But at the same time, if ever there was someone who fits the paradigm of who they would consider a bad egg, it would be this guy. Every answer that he had was just wrong. Also, when I was reading it, I was thinking, am I supposed to root for this guy? How am I supposed to feel about this guy? I'll tell you what. I don't think he feels anything about himself. When it was over, I was thinking, this guy has no defense for his own life. Why should I have any interest with him? You know what I mean? Why would I waste thought on someone like that? Now, when I started thinking the book over is when I was hit with the book's value. Up until I started grilling it in my head, I hated it. But then I was starting to learn perceptions that I just recently had. Clearly this man has a mental deficiency. He has zero empathy, and once he gets uncomfortable physically, his mental faculties decrease dramatically. He doesn't say it explicitly But every time it gets hot, it focuses more on his internal narration, and there's very little information about what's going on. Like when he murdered the guy, he expressed it as being pushed forward towards the wrong decision. In the courtroom, it was so hot he couldn't even perceive the faces of the people that he knew from his life amidst the crowds of all the judging eyes looking at him. Whenever it gets hot or he gets pressured, he just does wild stuff. He really does seem like a character who just is mentally handicapped, emotionally handicapped, and no one can figure out why. It's not necessarily that he is like a dyed-in-the-wool criminal. It's just he's more prone to act in ways that aren't kosher. As I was going through the book and figuring out how I felt about the trial and how I felt about everyone judging him for how well he observed cultural norms, here's the thing that really puts the nail in the coffin. Why would you empty your clip into a corpse you just made? I'm assuming that the revolver is a 5-shot revolver. He shot the man once, and the man was dead, lying prone on the sand. And then, after a brief pause, he fired 4 more times. Why would you empty your gun into a corpse that you just made? There's no answer to that absolves him. His answer was, I don't know, it was hot. I'm no psychologist or whatever, so I can't say exactly what's up with this guy mentally. And the last thing that really made me decide, yeah, this is kind of a nonsense book, is when he was talking to the chaplain in the prison and yelling at him about how little he knows about the God that he prays to, and how he himself is more alive than the man of the cloth will ever be, or something of that nature. And yeah, I'm gonna give that an absolute failing score in terms of truth or accuracy. Like that to me, that just makes me think, well, this guy really has a poor sense of perception. Because here's the thing, how can he be so sure that there's no God if he can't figure out why he even does things on his own? He seems so pushed by how he feels in the moment, yet he calls himself free. That don't compute to me, you know? He seems so certain that his view of the world is correct, but there's not enough RAM in there in his brain to recognize that there's definitely things about himself that he doesn't know. And to be fair, no one else seems to be able to grasp either. That's so silly. He's just as short-sighted as anyone else, arguably more so. So I'm not gonna assume that this guy has anything that I want. So my score, as far as an entertaining read, is still 1.5. It's a super boring book. But if you want to expand your mind, you know, chew on something in your mind, definitely 5 stars, man. This was kind of what I was waiting for, you know? I was waiting for a book that could show me a different setting in my brain, you know? I was suddenly able to like see perspective, to see how other people feel. It was sharpened by reading this book. So I dug that. I don't know, maybe it's because it was written so clearly and every event, although boring, is also economical, because there's nothing that happens that doesn't resurface. That's just my opinion on that. There's my scores. So yeah, okay, that's been real, y'all. Yeah, I'll get at you when I'm at you.
Well, I, for one, will not be accepting this verdict. And this little monster may think he's gotten away, but there is something called the Court of Public Opinion that still has final say in this country.